Hello everybody, this is R from DGR Unit. Today I'm going to be discussing a little bit more about the Purple Bleach deck. If you saw our earlier videos, you know that I've recently made a video discussing about the deck profile of Purple Bleach, as well as a video where me and Dee discuss about our first local tournament experience. As we stated in our earlier videos, we didn't do so good in our first local tournament. But in time, we were able to take that opportunity to learn from our mistakes and be able to improve ourselves, which led us to get not only third place, but also second place in a couple of tournaments in those following weeks. Of course, within that time, we were able to get a lot of experience and learn a bit more about our decks and how to utilize them. So I want to be able to take that experience and teach you guys, or to show you guys a little bit more of what I discovered, or what we discovered with Purple Bleach, and how we're able to utilize that to help get us and help place in those top 3 and top 2 positions. So now, the first thing that I want to start off with are the changes that I made to the deck. As you can see on the roll at the top, these were the cards that I was originally running in the deck, and at the bottom are the cards that I end up swapping out the cards for. Now, you'll see that I took out the cards Nail, the Substitute Soul Reaper, as well as 2 of the Department of Research and Developments that I was playing. Now, the reason that I made this change was because even though I enjoyed always having a 0 drop to go into my later plays, as well as having the means to be able to dig into my deck, I did notice that as I was running these cards, the main issue that I was finding was that even though I was getting into my raid characters effectively and efficiently, I was lacking board presence. And I'm starting to realize that in this game, board presence is extremely important, and you want to be able to continuously have bodies on the field in order to pressure your opponent. Now, and that's pretty much why I ended up exchanging these cards for the Rukia package that you've seen down here, because not only am I able to get a body for the cheap for 3 energy, get a 3500 beater on the board, but I'm also able to utilize Rukia's ability, which in turn allows her to that whenever she swings or when she attacks, I'm able to draw a card into my hand and discard a card into my sideline. I'm still able to utilize the effects of, like, say, Substitute Soul Reaper in the Department of Research and Development, which of course is allowing me to draw cards while also feeling my sideline and still have a body to apply pressure on top of that. I also decided to run the 2 raid Rukias as well. Not only due to the fact because for every raid card you want to play, you want to have 2 fodder cards for it, but because I also am able to utilize her raid ability, which allows us to draw 3 cards and discard 2 of those cards into the sideline. Once again, utilizing what this deck does best, which is drawing cards and discarding cards, but still maintaining that board presence, as well as having a 4K beater on the board that can also increase the BP of other characters on the field as well as itself. Now, I do want to go ahead and discuss a little more about the Department of Research and Development, because as I stated before, I was normally running for Department of Research and Development, and I pretty much explained how good and important this card is in the deck. Now, I still think that this card is still heavily important in the deck, and that there is nothing wrong with running for Department of Research and Development, because you're going to always have that opportunity to be able to search 5 cards deep into your deck and find exactly what you want. Because as you already know, Department of Research and Development doesn't specify you have to take a specific card and add it to your hand. You can take any card of those 5 cards and add it to your hand while still filling your graveyard and putting the rest in the bottom. See, the only reason that I'm going to running 2 of them now is because I'm trying to test the consistency of the Rukia package on whether or not do I get the same results of running this Rukia package as compared to running for Department of Research and Development. Now, if you are currently running for Department of Research and Development in your deck as of right now, I highly recommend to continue to run those 4 cards, because it's just such a good card and it generates so much value. It will be a waste to not utilize the card to its full potential. This is just something that I am currently testing to see which of the 2 that I like more. Do I like running for Department of Research and Development, or do I like running the full Rukia package right here? But yeah, this is pretty much the change that I made to the deck, and I did notice that after I made this change, I noticed that I saw a significant improvement with my gameplay as well as my strategy of being able to not only flood the board with a consistent amount of creatures to apply that board presence, but still maintain that value of drawing and discarding cards. Because even then, when I was running the 4 Department of Research and Developments, the only real change that I made when substituting these cards out was I just kept 3 Rukias and 1 Raid Rukia, which of course was still giving back a bit of consistency with my play, but well, no buts, but just that right now I'm currently testing the Rukia package and the 2 Department of Research as compared to just running straight up for Department of Research as a whole. Now, the next thing I want to discuss with this deck to hopefully help you guys out are these 4 Pacific cards, and primarily Soy Phone. Now, you heard me say it a bunch of times, I love Soy Phone, I love it to death, and I already planned on playing Soy Phone into the deck, especially as a 2-of, because that's where I'm currently playing. I'm playing 2 Soy Phones in the deck. And as I continue to play this deck more and more, I figured out, and I am going to realize, or discovering right now, how good of a card Soy Phone is. Soy Phone, on her own, well, you'll probably think is not a good card, where it's like, oh, she can only go to the front. I utilize the action point and can kill the character with 3,500 or less BP. All right, pretty basic. But you'll also understand that Soy Phone is a really good card, and a really underrated card that people don't pay much attention to being able to grind out the later game. Because I found myself in a lot of situations where I was outpacing and outboarding my opponent simply because of the fact I was able to utilize Soy Phone's effect to kill a character the following turn, or to target a character on their turn and force them to block with my front line. And as I continue to play Soy Phone, I realized that when you play cards like the Byakuya's as well as Ichigo, it just makes Soy Phone that much better of a card. I'm sure you guys have seen it plenty of times with playing your matches, but the main average raid BP of a character is 4K. And 4K is no pushover. It's going to be hard to get around and get over those 4Ks unless you're using a card like, say, Getsuga, for example, to flat out kill the character. Now, where these cards shine with Soy Phone is that all 3 of these cards involve decreasing the BP of the opponent's characters. So, for starters, let's talk about the Byakuya Kushiki, specifically the 3 cost. As we already know, when you go ahead and play the 3 cost Byakuya on the field, you're able to target one card on your opponent's front line and it loses 500 BP. This is your simple bread and butter combo with Soy Phone, because you can just take a 4K raid character on your opponent's front line, play Byakuya, decrease it to 35, and then activate Soy Phone's effect. Now you just turn a 4K beater on the enemy side, and you're able to get rid of it now because you played these 2 cards in tangent with each other. The same thing can also be said about the raid Byakuya. On play, the raid Byakuya is able to decrease the BP of the entire enemy's front line by 1K. So if you do have a barrage of characters with 4K BP on your enemy's side, you're able to decrease the BP, once again turning on your Soy Phone and making it much better of a card to utilize to get rid of those characters. And last but not least, you can also do the same thing with your Ichigo. As far as Ichigo goes, at least how I was using it in the beginning, I was just flat out playing Ichigo to say, oh, I'm just gonna send 8 to 10 cards from my sideline to my removal area in order to just flat out kill the character. But I soon realized that, hey, I don't need to send all the cards from my sideline to the removal area. I can just send 1 or 2 cards to the removal area to fill out my Soy Phone in order to utilize her ability, which in turn allows me to still have a lot of cards into my sideline so I can utilize the effects of Byakuya, or in other cases my other raid Ichigo, to be able to utilize their impact abilities to slip in and start dealing more damage than I could have. So overall, Soy Phone is a much better card than most people will give her credit for, and I really do feel as though that if you're going to play Soy Phone, you want the player as a 2-of, ideally, and pretty much is that you want to play her as a 2-of. If you're going to play her at a 1-of, you might as well not play her at all. I feel as though playing her as a 2-of is the ideal for Purple Bleach, and it'll give you the consistency of drawing into her, or at least having her into your life, so that way you can trigger her on her draw effect. But overall, I feel as though Soy Phone is a pretty excellent card, super valuable card that is able to really grind out the later game against your opponent. Another thing that I want to go over with this deck is that I mentioned earlier in this video is board presence. As I continue to play this game, I began to understand how much more board presence is and how I'm able to fully utilize my board presence in this game. So what I did right now was just set up a simple board example so I can explain to you the type of plays that I can do and how I can utilize my board presence to the fullest. So let's say that it's the start of your turn and this is your board right here. You have your 2-cost Byakuya, your Kisuke, a Byakuya, and a Soyo, as well as a Rukia in the front line. Let's just say for whatever reason, you had 2 other characters and your opponent got rid of them. So what I can do with this board, especially with Purple Bleach, is that during my movement phase, I can go ahead and move Soyo up to the front line. So now that leaves a spot back into my back line, as well as having 2 characters up in my front line. Now let's give and take in this situation that the opponent has a couple of 4Ks on their field. And it's like, man, I gotta be able to deal with this situation and apply that pressure. So how am I able to do that? Well, one thing that I know with this deck, or especially just with the game itself, when it comes to raiding your characters, understand, you don't have to move your characters to the front line when you raid them. You can just keep them in the back line. So what do I really mean by that, by still getting value while still keeping your characters on the back line? Well, it's simple. Say the enemy has 2 4K beaters on the field right now that you need to try to get you and deal with. Well, one thing I can do is with my current board, I can go ahead and play Byakuya. Play Byakuya over my fodder Byakuya, and instead of moving it to the front line, I can just activate its wind plate effect to be able to decrease the BP of my enemy's field or my enemy's front line by 1K. Now, that turns on Soyo. Soyo is now able to utilize her effect to be able to get rid of those characters on their field, while I'm still maintaining the Byakuya on the back line. So I can easily utilize, like, say, my second action point to activate Soyo. Soyo now activated its ability. Their character is now prone to die. Then now they have to block it, because if they don't block the character and just let the damage get through, you pretty much just 2 for 1 though. You got in damage for free where they could have blocked it, and now they still lost the character. Or they can utilize the block and you just forcibly kill one of their characters, which can also put you ahead. Another thing you can do with, like, say, your remaining action point is you can just go ahead and just play your Ichigo back to the back line right here, or play your Ichigo to the front line, which, now that I think about it, be the better play, because now not only you have a potential blocker to block whatever shenanigans they have left, but after you finish utilizing your effects and swinging in with your opponents, you can go and say, all right, and in turn, Soyo's effect moves it back to the back line, so now it protects her from any type of kill spells that the enemy may try to do to try to get rid of Soyo. And you, at this point, you pretty much took care of one of the characters, and depending on the amount of life they have, they might be forced to block with the other characters so they don't take damage, or they let the damage go through and now you're that much closer to winning your game. Now keep in mind this board state that we're at right now. Your Byakuya is still on the back line, and let's say your opponent is at, like, say, 2 or 1 health, or even 3 health at that example. They now have to be worried about this Byakuya on the back line because they know this Byakuya has impact. I can give this Byakuya impact after I move it to the front line and start applying pressure. And they're aware of that, so now they have to play around it. And because I just sit in the back line, they have to figure out, how can I get this character to be moved to the front line? So just from this character being on the back line alone, you're applying so much pressure against your opponent. And it doesn't even have to be with the Byakuya. It can even be with a raid Ichigo. I can just replace the Byakuya with the raid Ichigo and say, hey, I have a character on the back line with impact. If you take care of my front line, I can just move these characters up and start swinging at you for game, or I can just hold these characters in my hand for when you baited out my front line, I can start playing these characters. So regardless of what happens in the next turn or situation, your opponent now has to remember that, hey, if I don't play my cards right, or if I don't figure out how to beef up my defenses, you can go in and just take the game from them. Because I can easily say on my following turn, once again, I can move Soyo up on the field, I can move Byakuya up on the field, and then I can go ahead and play this raid Ichigo. I now have the opportunity to give out 2 characters impact, so I can really swing for a lot of damage, plus I have a full set board. And just in case they do have another enemy out on their field, I can just go and say, if it's weak enough, I can utilize Soyo's effect again. I can force you to block, I can go into Rukia, start swinging, gaining value out of that, and I still have these raid characters that I can go in and go in for the kill. And also keep in mind, Byakuya's when attacking ability, I can also decrease an opponent's BP by 1K. So now that 4K beater or that 5K beater, for example, that they were aligned to block, now becomes open to dying to my characters. So this is just a little example of things that I figured out with the deck and that I now utilize in my day-to-day strategy to be able to outplay and to overwhelm my opponents. Because like I mentioned, just keeping raid characters on the backline, especially characters with impact, is enough to really pressure your opponent, especially if you're drawing like say Rukias, Soyphones, or even the 3-cost Ichigo, for example, to pressure your opponent and to force them to utilize resources to take care of that front line while still keeping your raid characters safe from harm. And the last thing that I want to go over with this deck and a little bit of tech is that your sideline, especially with this deck, is a really good valuable resource than most people will give it credit for. Well, I guess you could say a lot of people understand how valuable the resource is from the sideline, but it's a really valuable resource and you really want to get into the habit of utilizing your sideline to its maximum potential. And what I mean by that is that not just getting into the habit, like say like, oh, if there's a Kurapika or there's a Hisugaya on the field, I need to get rid of it. Let me just drop down this Ichigo, take 8 to 10 cards, drop it in my removal effort, and flat out kill the character. That's not your only option. Sometimes what's good enough to allow you to get that edge or to overwhelm your opponent, maybe just sending 2 or 3 cards to the sideline, especially with your raid Ichigo. Maybe you don't need to flat out just kill the character, but rather than decrease its BP just low enough for you to force your character in the situation saying like, hey, I want you to block. I'm gonna force you in a situation where you have no choice but to block. And then you're still gonna kill the character because you just decreased the BP just enough that even your 35 or your 3K beaters can swing over there to force them to make an uncomfortable situation. And because you do that, like say this Ichigo, that gives you a lot more room to utilize your other raid Ichigo as well as your raid Byakuya. Now you can utilize more resources to give your other raid characters impact by sending 3 or 4 cards to the to the removal area. Now you're able to give Byakuya impact and the other Ichigo impact to start swinging in and applying more of that pressure because you just didn't go, let's say, all to the wall with the raid Ichigo. Yes, it is super nice to kill a character, but sometimes you can trade in that strat just to give your other characters impact to like force them to like know that, hey, I'm guaranteed this 2 damage unless they have nullified impact, which of course is far-fetched in between. And not only on top of that, also keep in mind, once again, Byakuya's attacking ability, taking a card, putting in the sideline to decrease the BP of a character on their field. So if they're trying to do a desperate chump block with a like a 15 or 2K BP character, and you have raid Ichigo in your hand, let's say for example, like 2K BP for example, sometimes it's better just to utilize maybe 1 card or 2 cards of Ichigo's ability to decrease the BP, and then use other cards like say Byakuya and use your resource for Byakuya's ability to give it impact, or to use the 1K with attacking ability to kill that character as well. Because in that case you can save, like say, for an extra card or 2 in your sideline to be able to utilize it for a follow-up play. And that's just one of the things I just also want to point out to you is that your sideline is more than just say, oh, I'm just going to dump my sideline for this raid Ichigo. No, you can utilize this sideline for your other raid cards to get more value out of the game and out of your plays. Not to mention there are many other cards in the purple archetype as well that can actually grab cards from the sideline. That's all depending on what type of deck you want to play. And that's going to wrap up the video for today. Once again, I just wanted to showcase all the things that we were able to learn with the deck and how we were able to improve upon it to be able to place not only in 3rd place, but it's also 2nd place in our local tournaments. I hope that you guys are able to take this experience and implement it into your own play or even into your play styles with a couple of other decks in order to elevate your guys' self to get to the next level that you guys desire. Once again, this all couldn't be possible without the help of everybody over at our locals tournament as well as our local game store at East Coast Anime. Super helpful guys, super helpful people. I have nothing for love for them to able to help us and to elevate us to get to the next level. And of course, with me being the way I am, I'm going to eventually be getting first and mopping the floor with D. Don't tell D that I said that, alright? But anywho, that's going to end the video for today. Once again, this is R from DJR Union. I hope you guys have a fantastic day.